I always thought I was a good judge of character. I prided myself on it, actually, but the moment I handed Marcus a copy of my apartment key, my life turned into something I still have trouble explaining out loud. This is the story of how my roommate, someone I trusted completely, had been living a double life right under my roof, and I had absolutely no idea, until the night I found the box. Open book part 1, how it all started. Let me take you back about 14 months ago. I'm 26, working a remote marketing job, living in a decent one-bedroom apartment in Austin, Texas. The rent was $1,450 a month, manageable on my salary, but honestly it was draining me. A co-worker suggested I look for a roommate to split costs. I was hesitant. I'd lived alone for 2 years and loved my space. But the numbers didn't lie, I needed help with rent. So I posted on a Facebook housing group and got about 30 responses in 2 days. Most were sketchy. Some were students. But then, Marcus messaged me. He was 28, worked as a freelance graphic designer, clean profile, mutual friends with 2 people I actually knew. We video called for an hour. He was funny, calm, super normal. He offered 3 months of rent up front. I said yes. Looking back, I should have asked why he was so eager to move in immediately. But I didn't. Marcus moved in on a Sunday afternoon. 2 suitcases, a laptop bag, and 1 large box that he carried himself. Wouldn't let me help with it. It's just equipment for work, he said, smiling. I didn't think anything of it. Why would I? Open book part 2, the first red flags. The first month was completely fine. Marcus was clean, quiet, paid on time. He cooked sometimes and would leave a plate for me. We'd watch TV on Friday nights. Honestly, I thought I got lucky. But around week 5, small things started feeling off. First, his schedule. Marcus worked from home like me, but his hours were bizarre. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. to get water and see light coming from under his door. Typing sounds. Muffled talking. I assumed he had international clients in different time zones. Totally reasonable explanation. I let it go. Second, the mail. Marcus started receiving packages. A lot of them. Different names on the labels. James T. Williams. Derek Calloway. Robert Nash. I asked him about it once, casually. He laughed and said, "Oh, those are client accounts, I manage their business mail sometimes." I nodded. It made partial sense, but something in my gut twitched. Third, the bathroom cabinet. One morning I was running late and grabbed what I thought was my cologne. Wrong bottle, it was his. And when I opened his cabinet by mistake, there were 4 different driver's licenses sitting right there on the shelf. 4. All with his photo. All with different names. My heart stopped. I closed the cabinet. I went to work. I told myself there was a logical explanation. Maybe they were props for a design project. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe I was overthinking, but I photographed them before I left. Just in case. Open book part 3, going deeper. I started paying more attention after that. I know some of you are screaming, why didn't you just kick him out? But here's the thing about manipulation. When someone is good at it, they make you feel like you're the crazy one for even suspecting them. Marcus was warm. Present. Normal 90% of the time. That 10%, that's what kept me up at night. I started keeping a notes app on my phone. Just logging things. Timestamps. Observations. Things that felt wrong. Week 7, Marcus got a phone call and walked outside immediately. Stayed out there for 45 minutes. Came back acting completely normal. Week 8, I noticed he never video called anyone. Only voice calls. Always with headphones. Always in his room with the door locked. Week 9, he asked me, very casually, if I'd ever had any issues with the landlord. If she ever came by unannounced. If she had a spare key. I said no to all 3. He nodded slowly and said, "Good. Privacy is important." I typed that into my notes immediately. Week 10, the box. You remember the box he carried in on move-in day? It had been sitting in the corner of his room this whole time. I'd never seen him open it. Never seen anything come out of it. But one night, while Marcus was in the shower, his bedroom door was open. And the box was open. I'm not proud of what I did next. I walked in. The box was filled with burner phones. At least 12 of them. Some had sticky notes attached with dates and dollar amounts. My hands were shaking. I took photos and walked out before he finished his shower. That night I barely slept. By morning, I had made a decision. Open book part 4. The truth comes out. I called my friend Danny the next day. She worked in cybersecurity and was the smartest person I knew. I sent her the photos, the licenses, the phones, the sticky notes. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Hey, do you know if Marcus has ever asked you for personal information, your SSN? Bank info? Anything like that?" I thought back. 3 weeks after moving in, Marcus had asked to see my electric bill. Said he needed to show proof of address to a client for a co-working space form. I'd handed it over without blinking. My stomach dropped. Danny told me to check my credit report immediately. I did. There were 2 credit cards open in my name that I had never applied for. Combined limit $18,000. Both had been used. I felt the room spin. I hung up with Danny, locked my bedroom door, and just sat on the floor for a while. My roommate, the guy sleeping 15 feet away from me, was running some kind of identity fraud operation. And he had used me. I could have panicked, screamed, confronted him. But Danny had told me something important: don't tip him off. Document everything first. Then we get him properly. So that's exactly what I did. Open book part 5. The setup. Over the next 5 days, I became a completely different person. On the surface, totally normal roommate. Making coffee in the morning. Asking about his day. Even watching a movie with him on Thursday night. Meanwhile I was filing a fraud report with my bank. Working with Danny to document the phones and licenses. Contacting the FTC and local police non-emergency line. Getting a consultation with a tenant attorney. Changing every single password I owned from a private browser on my phone. The detective I spoke to, I'll call him Officer Reed, was surprisingly helpful. He confirmed this was a pattern they'd seen before. Identity fraud rings operating out of residential apartments. He told me not to confront Marcus alone. He told me to keep acting normal. He told me they'd need a few days to build probable cause. The hardest part, sitting across from Marcus at dinner on Friday night, while he talked about some Netflix show he'd been watching, knowing what I knew. He had no idea. He smiled at me and said, "You know, man, this has been a really solid living situation. I hope we can renew the lease." I smiled back. "Yeah," I said. "We'll see how things go." Open book part 6. The day everything exploded. It happened on a Tuesday. I had been told to leave the apartment by 10 a.m. and not return until I got a call. I sat in a coffee shop 3 blocks away, leg bouncing, barely touching my drink. At 11:23 a.m., Officer Reed called me. "You can come back now." When I walked into the building, there were 2 unmarked cars parked outside. Inside the apartment, Marcus was sitting on the couch. In handcuffs, completely still. He looked up when I walked in. And for the first time since I'd known him, that calm, easy smile was completely gone. He looked at me differently. Like he was recalculating everything. One of the officers walked me through what they'd found. The phones were being used to intercept 2-factor authentication codes. Part of a broader SIM swapping fraud scheme. The different names and licenses, at least 6 confirmed stolen identities. They found a second laptop hidden in the back of his closet, with encrypted files they were still working through. The client accounts receiving mail shell identities used to open credit lines. Marcus had been doing this for at least 3 years. Across multiple cities. He'd lived with 4 different roommates before me. I was just the latest target. As they walked him out, he paused next to me for a second. He didn't say sorry. He didn't explain himself. He just looked at me and said quietly, "You're smarter than I thought." The door closed behind him. I stood in my apartment alone, and let out the longest breath of my life. Open book outro aftermath and lesson. It's been 8 months since that morning. The fraudulent credit cards have been cleared from my record. It took 2 months of paperwork, but it's done. Marcus was charged with multiple counts of identity theft and wire fraud. Last I heard, he took a plea deal. I eventually moved to a smaller, cheaper apartment. Just me, no roommates. And honestly worth every extra dollar. Now look, I'm not telling this story to scare you away from ever getting a roommate. Most people are decent. But I want you to remember a few things. Number 1, trust your gut. That first twitch I felt about the mail, I should have pulled on that thread sooner. Number 2, never hand over personal documents to someone you haven't fully verified. Not a lease. Not a utility bill. Nothing with your name and address combined. Number 3, check your credit report regularly. Annualcreditreport.com is free. It takes 5 minutes. It could save you years of damage. And number 4. If something feels off about the person living under your roof, it probably is. Don't wait for the box to be open. If you made it to the end of this story, drop a comment below. Would you have noticed the red flags sooner? And if this happened to you or someone you know, I'd love to hear it. Hit subscribe for more stories like this every week. I'll see you in the next one.